It began with a quiet cast into the water, a man, a fishing pole, and a lake that had always felt like home. But that peaceful moment didn't last. The rules suddenly shifted, the warnings grew sharper, and the message was clear. He wasn't welcome. What should have been a simple pastime turned into a battle where every glance, every threat, pushed him closer to the edge. They thought they could control him, break him, strip him of his place. But instead they lit a fire, because when he finally struck back, the entire balance of power on that lake changed forever. Before it became a battlefield, the lake was his sanctuary. He grew up just a few miles away, where summers meant long days of sunlight reflecting off the water, where the sound of a reel spinning felt like freedom. Fishing wasn't just a hobby, it was a tradition, a way to connect with his father and grandfather, a ritual passed down through generations. Out there on the shoreline, surrounded by nothing but rippling waves and rustling trees, he found a peace the world rarely allowed him. But the neighborhood around the lake began to change. What was once open land became neatly divided parcels, each ruled by an HOA with strict, unforgiving rules. The fences rose higher, the signs multiplied, and the sense of belonging slowly faded. Yet still, he returned, because this place was more than water and land. It was part of who he was. At first, he thought the rules were the same for everyone, that maybe the warnings, the fines, the stares were just misunderstandings. But soon, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Others fished freely. Others enjoyed the same lake without question. But for him, every visit brought a new confrontation, a new reminder that they didn't see him as equal. What began as quiet frustration would soon spiral into open conflict, one that no one could have predicted, because he wasn't about to let go of the one place that had always been his. The first time they find him, he laughed. A slip of paper left on his windshield, stamped with official wording, accusing him of trespassing and unauthorized fishing. He thought it had to be a mistake. After all, this was the same shoreline he'd fished since he was a child, the same waters his family had always considered theirs by heritage, if not by deed. He folded the notice and tucked it away, convinced it would all be cleared up with the simple conversation. But the conversation never came. Instead, the fines kept arriving. Each visit to the lake brought another warning, another citation, another set of eyes watching him as though his very presence were a crime. Neighbors fished freely, beer in hand, music playing, lines cast into the water without a care. No fines, no warnings, no threats, just him, always him. At first, he tried to reason. He called the HOA office, sat through long, tense meetings, and explained that he wasn't harming anyone. He reminded them that fishing was not only allowed, but advertised as one of the community's selling points. But the faces across the table stayed cold, their voices clipped and dismissive. Rules were rules, they said, but somehow, those rules only seemed to apply to him. Soon, it escalated beyond paper fines. He'd arrive at the lake and find officials waiting, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, like predators circling prey. Sometimes the police were called, uniformed officers stepping out of their cars, hands resting on holsters, asking questions they already knew the answers to. Each time, his stomach tightened. Each time, the message rang louder, leave. You don't belong here. But he did belong. Every memory told him so. And the more they pushed, the stronger his resolve grew. Whispers spread through the neighborhood. Some residents mocked him openly, whispering as he walked past. Others stayed silent, unwilling to confront the injustice, but unwilling to stand beside him either. Isolation wrapped around him like chains. But still, he refused to stop fishing. The lake was more than water. It was a symbol, a line in the sand. And if he surrendered it, what else would they take? His dignity, his freedom, his very right to exist in peace. One day, after yet another fine, threatening legal action this time, he stood at the water's edge, pole in hand, heart pounding with equal parts rage and determination. He realized then that this wasn't about fishing at all. This was about control, about power, about reminding him that no matter what he did, No matter how quietly he lived, they would always find a way to put him in his place. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that he was already planning his next move. And when it came, it would turn their entire world upside down. Because he wasn't going to walk away. He was going to fight back. And the way he chose to do it would leave the whole neighborhood stunned. The breaking point came quietly, almost invisibly. No shouting, no confrontation, just a single signature on a document that would change everything. After weeks of sleepless nights, legal research, and hushed conversations with people who understood land rights better than the HOA ever expected him to, he discovered something shocking. The lake wasn't theirs. It wasn't controlled by the HOA at all. It was for sale. And while they were busy harassing him with fines, he had been negotiating behind the scenes. Piece by piece, he pulled together the funds, borrowing, sacrificing, calling in favors, and refusing to give up. The day the ink dried, the balance of power shifted forever. The lake, the one they told him he had no right to fish in, now belonged to him. When word spread, the neighborhood erupted. HOA board members scrambled, furious and embarrassed, demanding explanations that no longer mattered. The same police officers who once stood by to enforce their rules now had no jurisdiction here. The smug neighbors who had mocked him suddenly found themselves on the outside looking in. And he didn't stop there. With calm precision, he posted signs of his own. The rules had changed. No more fishing for those who once tried to strip him of his dignity. No more carefree weekends on waters they assumed they controlled. Every cast of a line, every ripple of the lake, now flowed under his authority. The image was unforgettable. Him standing tall at the shoreline, fishing pole in hand, while the HOA officials looked on from a distance, powerless for the first time. They had tried to make him feel small, but in that moment, it was clear who truly held the power. The man they tried to silence now owned the very thing they used against him. The lake wasn't just his to fish, it was his to control. And with every decision he made from that point forward, the neighborhood was forced to reckon with a truth they could no longer deny. The man they had underestimated was now the one who held all the cards. Owning the lake wasn't just a victory, it was a declaration. For the man who once stood alone against fines, threats, and humiliation, the silence of his enemies became louder than all their rules combined. They had tried to cage him with restrictions, but in the end, their own arrogance handed him the key to freedom. The HOA, once so proud of its authority, could do nothing but watch. Their bylaws, their meetings, their smug letters meant nothing now. Even the police, who once showed up as enforcers, no longer had reason to step foot on the property. The power dynamic had flipped, and for the first time, justice didn't just arrive, it stayed. But this story isn't only about land, water, or fishing rights. It's about what happens when a community decides who belongs and who doesn't. It's about a black man told to know his place, who refused, and instead created a place that was undeniably his. Neighbors whispered, some in anger, others in quiet admiration. Children pointed to him as the man who owned the lake. Even those who once mocked him now had to confront the truth. He had turned their prejudice into his power. Yet for him, the victory was bittersweet. The lake became a symbol, not of revenge, but of resilience. It was proof that dignity, once stripped, could be reclaimed. Proof that injustice, once exposed, could be overturned. And for those watching, his story forces a question. How many others are being pushed down, silenced, and erased, only because of who they are? How many more will be told they don't belong, until one day they rise and turn the tables? This isn't just a story. It's a reminder that change doesn't always come through protest or noise. Sometimes it comes through patience, strategy, and the quiet strength to endure until the moment is right. So, next time someone tries to write you out of the story, remember his lake. Remember what they tried to take and what he made his own. And if this story moved you, be part of the conversation. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories